Hello, everyone. Welcome to Power the Movement series. As we get settled in, please introduce yourself in the chat, put your name, pronouns, and one word to describe how you're feeling at this particular moment in time. Thank you in advance. My name is Jane Kimondo, and I have the honor of serving as the Executive Director of Crossroads Fund. On behalf of our board and staff, we welcome you to these very important conversations. Today's virtual power hour is on boycotts. This is partly a political education session and also a reflection of the current moment. Boycotts have been successfully used over many decades. They range from the abolitionist boycotting sugar produced by slaves, the Montgomery bus boycott, anti apartheid boycott, to present day boycotts of major corporations. As an organizing tactics, boycotts are collective in nature and have effectively brought about real and lasting change. The Change Crossroads Fund community of donors, grantees, partners in philanthropy, and friends seek to realize every single day. Our Power the Movement series is about listening. It's about learning and it's about lifting up the voices of those impacted the most and those doing the powerful work of resistance and care. I want to thank each one of you for being here today. Whether you're a longtime supporter of Crossroads Fund or just joining the conversation today, your presence matters and your engagements help us move this work forward. With that, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Emmanuel Garcia, who will guide us through the rest of today's program. Thank you again for being part of this journey of powering the movement. Over to you, Manny.
Thank you, Jane. I would say my one word would be honored. I'm just honored to be here joining you all today on this Tuesday, Giving Tuesday. Shout out to the Crossroads Fund team working behind the scenes, especially Alexis Sanchez Boizo, who's supporting with tech and in the chat to make this program engaging. I'm Emmanuel Garcia, the Development and Communications Director at Crossroads Fund. In just a minute, I'll be joined by our grantee partner, Dr. Fannie Rushing from Chicago SNCC History Project to explore how we can more strategically stop funding our own oppression by using boycotts and strengthening solidarity within our communities. Before that, I have a couple of announcements, 3 things you don't want to miss. The first one is a funding opportunity. Our seed fund grant opportunity opens January 6th. The deadline for the seed fund is February 10th. I know we're going to bring it up on the slide in just a second. The seed fund is our largest grant-making fund. It supports long-time, well-established organizations as well as new, emerging, or small community-based organizations that are actively engaged in social change work. Funding is provided for general operating, startup costs, or project expenses. The maximum grant in this program is $15,000. So again, the seed fund will open. This funding opportunity by Crossroads Fund opens on January 6th, and the deadline is February 10th. The second thing is that our social justice prom is near. Seeds of Change, our annual spring fundraiser, is coming early next year. The date is Friday, March 13th. So please save the date. If you are interested in being part of the host committee or sponsoring the event, please reach out to me directly. The event brings together over 400 Chicagoans committed to funding movements for justice, and we hope that you will be one of them. The Chicago SNCC History Project has an event on January 8th that you are all invited to. I know that Dr. Fannie Rushing is going to extend that personal invitation. It will be an afternoon exploring the legacy of the civil rights movement in Chicago. The program will begin with a brief tour of historically significant sites on Bronzeville. And so, yeah, we have more. We'll share more about that in our conversation with Dr. Fannie Rushing. As we listen today, I want to invite you to keep in mind our Power the Movement campaign, our commitment to resource bold grassroots organizations on the front lines of this work. Movements need more than solidarity. They need sustained support. And Crossroads Fund does just that. We're a public foundation that for over 4 decades has supported grassroots organizations changing systems, getting to the root cause of injustice. Last year, we supported over 231 powerful groups. Can I have a couple people write 231 powerful groups in the chat? 231. They span these issues: worker rights, LGBTQIA rights, housing justice, disability justice. Can I hear you say all of the justice? And we need it. We know that the attacks are coming from all directions right now, and Crossroads Fund's mission is to support this work on all fronts. In fiscal year 2025, we moved $4.2 million to 231 powerful grantees. And we want to continue to do that. As we focus on economic justice and community development this afternoon with our grantee partner, Chicago SNCC History Project, I want to zoom in for a moment. Out of the 231 groups we supported in our last fiscal year, 22 are rooted in economic justice work. These are organizations on the front lines defending worker rights, challenging exploitative labor practices, and building community-owned systems of care and solidarity every day. Crossroads Fund grantees work rarely fits into a single issue area. They focus across movements grounded in intersectional approaches that reflect the complex realities our communities are facing. But that was last fiscal year. So what about right now? As attacks escalate in real time, we know this. When you give to Crossroads Fund, you're fueling economic justice and immigration justice, LGBTQ rights, housing justice, and worker rights, and more. Our grantees are fighting on all fronts, and they're doing it with urgency, vision, and care. As a public foundation, we rely on individual support. That means you. Right now, we're inviting you to meet the moment with us. Our goal is to raise $1 million by the end of the year. Can we do it? I think we can. So we can meet the level of need and match the capacity this work truly requires. We're already moving money quickly through our Community Resilience Fund, and we'll soon open our Seed Fund, as I mentioned, in January to support long-term grassroots organizing. The attacks won't stop at one issue, and neither will we. When you give to Crossroads Fund, your dollars, any amount, truly supports the full ecosystem of justice movements in the city. Huge thanks and huge shout out to our monthly sustainers. If you are a sustainer, please say so. You make this work possible every single day. So whether you give a one-time gift today or you become a monthly sustainer, thank you so much. As we move into our conversation today, Justice Through Boycott and Solidarity, I want to encourage you to put your questions in the chat. We want to get right into it. That's what the Virtual Power Hour is all about. So I want to welcome Dr. Fannie Rushing. Fannie is a lifelong civil rights organizer whose activism began as a Chicago high school student, joining sit-ins and local desegregation protests. She soon became a full-time secretary with Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, working in Chicago and in the Deep South from 1952 through 1966 on voter registration, freedom schools, and community organizing. After returning to Chicago, she helped connect Southern civil rights struggles to Northern fights for educational justice. In the late 1970s, she expanded her work internationally, supporting anti-apartheid and global liberation movements. Throughout her later academic career, she continued amplifying Black freedom struggles and grassroots movements through teaching, research, and public engagement. Fannie Rushing plays a key role in the Chicago SNCC History Project, which works to preserve the history of SNCC and the broader civil rights movement. She co-founded the project with Sylvia Fisher, and their donated materials make up the heart of the project's archives at the Woodson Regional Library as part of the Chicago Public Library. In short, Fannie is a lifelong civil rights freedom fighter and a living steward of the movement's legacy. Welcome, Fannie.
Thank you.
Yes, Fannie, it's long. I want to say you look beautiful. I love the necklace.
Thank you.
I don't know if people can see it. If you can maybe move it back a little bit so people can appreciate and I'll show my t-shirt because I love this t-shirt.
Yes.
And you're not gonna get to see it, but here it is.
Yes.
I wore it just for this conversation. I do want to say that I just want to give you your flowers, Fanny, for your lifelong commitment to this work. We are truly honored to be speaking with you and deeply grateful for the sacrifices, the leadership, and the wisdom that you poured into this movement. Thank you for expanding your capacity this afternoon to join us.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I love your Lowndes County Freedom Movement Panther, because that's where that comes from. And so it's great to see it there.
I wanna kind of start off with kind of the reason why we're having this conversation. Today's progressive economic activism includes a range of boycott and divestment efforts, from the global BDS movement in solidarity with Palestine to domestic consumer campaigns targeting corporations for harmful policies. Some recent examples include boycotts of companies rolling back DEI commitments, such as the growing pressure on Target, which has faced noticeable revenue impacts due to reduced support from Black consumers, Home Depot around their lack of protection for shoppers and workers around ICE activity at their stores. These campaigns reflect a continuation, really, of a long-standing strategy in the U.S. and movements in the U.S., using economic pressure to hold institutions accountable and to shift public conversation and to build solidarity. So this is why we thought that you are great to kind of bring into this conversation as part of your work. One of the questions that I have, Fanny, is which was like kind of a broad conversation, right? About how can my question that I try to ask myself, right, is how can I stop funding my own oppression? And I want you to share a little bit about the Stop Don't Shop campaign, and what that is for people who don't know. Maybe giving us some context of why that started and when.
Well, that's an example of one of our greatest failures. And so I wish we could start with something else. I mean, I'm happy to talk about that because it was a great learning experience. It's about really why boycotts don't work. And so I don't want to start with the failure. Could we? I don't want to interrupt the script, but could we maybe start with the Montgomery bus boycott?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. Let's start there.
Okay. I mean, the Montgomery bus boycott's important to me because it was my first introduction. Let me just say, my father was a labor organizer, a union organizer, and of course, the medium of television was just coming about in that moment. And I would sit with my father every night as the days of the boycott were building, building, building. And my father would say every night, you see, this is what Black people can do when they come together. And so for me, this is a very powerful time and a very exciting time because television put us right there on the street with people. And the momentum kept building and building and building. And ultimately, of course, was extremely successful. And one of the things that I said when we started was I'd like to talk about this book. I don't know if you can see it, but the title of the book is The Montgomery Bus Boycott and the Woman Who Started It. And of course, that woman was Joanne Gibson Robinson, not Rosa Parks,
Mhm.
Joanne Gibson Robinson. And the thing that is so important about the Montgomery bus boycott is it catapulted the Black community into a very public posture and demonstrated the power of the economic power that Black people had amassed in the southern urban locations, such as Montgomery. It was the first time for many of them that they were able to enter the industrial labor market, and they were able to demonstrate what they could do if they withdrew their buying power from an entity such as public transportation. I can't think of anything uh, in the contemporary US that was as powerful as that moment. But part of the reason it was so powerful is that it can't be divorced from this long tradition of Black resistance.
Mhm.
It can't be separated from the organizing for the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters, for which E.D. Nixon, of course, was the Southern Regional Director. He and Joanne Robinson came together to talk about what they were going to do to stop this daily humiliation when people got on the bus and had to always get up and give a white person a seat. But
Yeah.
the important lesson, and I'm going to try and do this quickly, the important lesson to the success of the boycott is organizing. People call for boycotts now as if they're ordering a cup of coffee.
Mhm.
This boycott was successful because it was 10 years in the making. It
Mhm.
was 10 years in the organizing. Therefore, they were able to show the power of the organized Black community. Unfortunately, we are losing that tradition of organizing. We mobilize, and that's wonderful. But in order for a boycott to be successful, there has to be an organized power base. And that's what we've got to do first. That's when a boycott shows your real strength. And the Stop Don't Shop Downtown boycott that SNCC organized in the 1960s was completely unsuccessful
Yeah.
because we didn't have that organized base
Yeah.
that would support it.
Yeah, and let's not get into that yet, because
Okay, all right,
now you took me back. But now
okay,
I do want to hold off on that campaign a
all
little
right,
bit.
all
But
right.
I do want to say, because that was one of my questions, was like, how can we keep the focus on what's at stake and at the core demands, rather than just the protest action themselves? Because
Yes.
so like this idea of like just calling for a boycott of a company, but not being clear on what the core demands are or what's at stake, what's that education that is happening in communities to let them know the why we don't support Chick-fil-A, for example.
Mhm.
I think sometimes people don't get it. They don't understand it. They think it's just one company. They don't see it as a systemic issue.
Right.
And so I do think that how can we get better at that? Maybe that's a lesson there, right?
Mhm.
But one of the things I want to talk to you about, because you brought up the Montgomery bus boycott, was I saw the movie A Mighty Long Walk. I don't know if you've seen it with
Yes.
Whoopi Goldberg,
Yes.
and I was fascinated by just because the learning the history of the boycott was the carpooling, right? That
Mhm.
people had to give up something. They were giving up their way to work, their way to school, their way to transportation. They were making a sacrifice to make the demand as part of the demand. And in part of that, people started to carpool, right? They were carpooling together. And in that particular movie, it was white people who were also joining the carpools, helping the boycott in that way. But it reminded me so much of like COVID. It reminded me so much of right now what's happening around ICE, that people are afraid to go out of their homes, and so neighbors are participating in mutual aid and basically picking up groceries for people so that they don't expose themselves to possibly being kidnapped, right, by ICE. So I was just seeing some connections and parallels there with that it wasn't just like people were doing this alone. There was a whole effort to help people be able to meet this demand.
Yes, and not only that, the carpooling, of course, was organized before you announced publicly
Mhm.
that there is a boycott. You don't want to say, we're going to boycott McDonald's because, and you haven't organized anything. And
Mhm.
so then you pass McDonald's and more people are going in than usual. The important thing about a boycott is it's an organizing device.
Mhm.
In setting up those carpools, you're not just providing a way to get to work, you're creating community, and even more community within the context of the boycott itself, so that you develop a very strong connection to those people that you are carpooling with. And you have thought this through. You have said, this is what we will do if they do X.
Mhm.
This is what the next step is. We will not stop until we get certain guarantees as a preliminary for this. It is a massive organizing project. It builds community, it demonstrates publicly who you are. But if you haven't organized, all it does is to show that you enjoy making statements, but
Mhm.
that there is nothing behind it, nothing to fear. The bus boycott was settled because it was clear that people were making a statement. This is where the line gets drawn. We are not going to stop doing this until we get very, very clear goals and objectives met. That way, you don't go down all kinds of rabbit holes and talking about nonsense when it has nothing to do with what your main goal is. And so, yes, boycotts are extremely powerful tool, but they are powerful tools because they illustrate your strength. They illustrate your ability to organize and solidify community behind certain goals. And
What,
so, I'm
um,
sorry.
Fanny, one of the things that I'm thinking about, thank you for bringing up Rosa Parks earlier. You said it wasn't Rosa Parks, but it was one of the things that strikes me about um, the arrest of Rosa Parks. We just had like the 70th anniversary of that happening, right? Of 1955, December 1st, which was yesterday, of Rosa Parks being arrested, and that has been kind of part of the story, right?
Mhm,
Of history, but one of the things that strikes me about that is just how young that history is. Like that's not this idea that Black people were being segregated in buses and were being asked to pay their fare and then walk out and go in through the back.
mhm.
That was happening 70 years ago. That wasn't a long
Wasn't the
ago.
Middle Ages,
This is
right?
no, it wasn't the Middle Ages. This is
Mhm,
this. So when you understand that thread, right, of that this is happening in the U.S., you can understand why what's happening today is so possible and how it's so connected to the people who are in power. A lot of the people who are in power, they're generationally have lived in that generation, or their ancestors have been part of that generation. So it's not like this is what's happening today is new. It might be new to
mhm.
the people coming up, but it's definitely not. I just want to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, often when you're teaching a course in Black resistance, you keep thinking, okay, but now we're further along. Now we're further along. And you find out, oh my God, I'm talking about 1960, I'm talking about 1970. And even for young people, I mean, this is the 20th century. This is the contemporary world. We are not talking about people being lynched in the 17th, 18th, and 19th century.
Mhm.
We're talking about this movement of lynching is a product of the 20th century.
Mhm.
Race riots, a product of the 20th century. People are always talking about slavery, and I'm not trying to say slavery wasn't important, but slavery ended 100 years ago. And, you know,
Mhm.
if black people had gotten their 40 acres and a mule 100 years ago, we'd probably be in a different position than we are now. Most of these things that we are talking about are things that happened in the post-emancipation period, right?
Mhm.
You don't have to worry about segregation. You don't have to worry about discrimination during slavery. You have to worry about these things after slavery. You have to worry about race riots. My God, I can still remember when you couldn't walk down 79th Street in Chicago if you were black. You had to stay on one side or the other because if you didn't, you'd be beaten half to death. That's Chicago
Mhm.
in the 1950s, in the 1960s. No, this is real. And therefore, once you have that living memory, it's okay for ICE to come and do. They've already decided how you handle dissent. There
Mm.
is already a script for that. You just flip it. It may be a new group of people,
Mhm.
but the public has already been prepared for how it is that you treat people of color in this country.
Yes.
Um,
Fanny, one of the things you said, you mentioned was the success of the boycott, and that there were clear demands, and that people were clear about that. I'm thinking about this idea of the internet, right? Like while a lot of our history is so young, there have been some significant changes in the way that we communicate, interact with each other, and a lot of that is in big part to technology,
yes.
and that has influenced organizing. Organizing has shifted to this kind of mass communication, the internet, and we've relied on it for a while now, right? That on sharing our message through social media, through these ways of communicating. And it's making me think about like coalition building. It's making me think about in person, with that people are so isolated in
Oh,
many ways
yes.
now, more isolated now. Community means different things to a lot of people. To young people, community is virtual. It's community is on your phone. That the community is your chat group, your signal group, right? And I do think that that is something that we need to think about because of the way that the movement seems like, who were the organizations that were kind of in charge, if you will, of the boycott, that were making sure that those demands were met? Whereas now I feel like we can call on a boycott, but there's no like central organized. It's like everyone that gets the message is part of this movement. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that, like how you interpret that.
Well, as they say, all roads lead to Rome, right? I don't have any problem with people using their phones to mobilize support for something. I think it's great that young people can get on the telephone and, you know, get 10,000 people on state in Madison in 15 minutes.
Mhm.
And that's very interesting. It's not organizing. It's not organizing. It is not coming together to either coordinate or establish, because after all, we're talking about life and death things right now.
Mm-hmm.
One of my great failures in life, and one of the things I'm saddest about this week, because Jamil El-Amin H. Rat Brown died in prison. He literally gave his life to Black resistance, and he paid the ultimate price. For most of that life, he was held in solitary confinement. And solitary confinement 6 feet below the earth. We're talking about life and death. I'm thinking about Ralph Featherstone, who at age 30 was blown up by the state. He gave his life for Black resistance. And when I think about that, people need to be aware that if you seriously challenge the state or power in this or any society, they will stop at nothing to destroy you. Mm-hmm. And therefore, if you're going to struggle, you have to build the kind of community that people can say, this is somebody that I can count on. This is somebody I know who's going to show up. This is somebody who is going to really be there to take care of my family if they take me out. I know that this is somebody who is going to bring whatever they need to bring to further this movement. I'm sorry, I don't believe that you can do that over the telephone. And the other thing is, all they have to do is cut your telephone off. Correct. And if you don't have an alternative plan, what did you do? Oh, my phone didn't work. Therefore, I can't do anything. No, there are multiple ways of struggle, but certainly the most important way of struggle is building that face-to-face community where you are directly responsible to the people that you are struggling with. You're not talking about it. You are demonstrating to them and to yourself that we are part of something that is bigger than either you or I. And we have a commitment to that. We don't make individual decisions. We make collective decisions. We do not issue statements that have not been vetted. Because what's going on in my head may be fine, but it doesn't mean that it's right. Yes. It's only when that is called into question that it is discussed, that it becomes a collective consciousness. And we're very low on collective consciousness because we live in a society of individualism. Everything in this society is designed to separate us. So when you get on the bus, as I do every day, everybody's on their phone. They're not talking to the person next to them. And so if somebody pours gasoline on you and sets you on fire, you don't feel any connection to that person. Right? You don't feel any question when you are dropping bombs onto a fishing boat that's 1,000 yards below you, that is a human being that you're killing. It's an object. It's an object of your target. Or it is the target is an object. It's not a human being. Therefore, a primary part of our work is rebuilding community, real functioning communities, because you can't really ally with people that you have not communed with. I mean, it's like the quintessential land acknowledgement now. Yes, everyone who has a bone of progressiveness will say, yes, we recognize that we took this land from Native people. We acknowledge that. But if you don't acknowledge that as a result of taking that land, you have a responsibility to do everything that you can to see that that land is
Mm.
given back and adequately
Mm-hmm.
given back. That's being an ally. And in order to be that ally, you must be in communion with people. Being an ally is not making a statement that I'm with you. Being an ally means I will do everything that I can to further the goals that are just for your community.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry,
Okay. No. Oh,
that was
you do not need to end with sorry. That is not that is very powerful. And I think that if I hope that people, one of the things I was just writing notes about that, we don't make individual decisions, or we make collective decisions. I love that. And then the wake up call for so many of us, right, is what will happen when they do turn off the lights on the phone, turn off the lights on social media, which has happened because a lot of these companies own these
right.
platforms. And so that is going to happen. That has happened already. And so yes, we need to rebuild community. I love that, because we definitely are in a moment of crisis where a lot of people are isolated, and it's not only is it detrimental to our justice efforts, right? But it's also a mental health issue.
Yes, it's detrimental to the psyche, right? Because you then begin to believe that it's just you. It is a personal problem, not a systemic problem. And when you are in community, you begin to understand the systemic nature of injustice in a way that you cannot understand it as an individual. Because then you think, if I can resolve my individual problem, I have accomplished something. You can only accomplish something if you remove oppressive structures that impact everyone, not just you.
Mm-hmm.
Because
That's right.
otherwise, you just end up thinking, well, if I can work out my problem, that means it can be worked out. I don't have to do anything else. And the structure is still left.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say, you brought up Black resistance, and that it benefited other groups. And one of the movies that I hope people will see, that you mentioned to me, that you recommended, I was lucky enough that you recommended a movie to me, and it was Agents of Change. And it's available now on a platform that we should be boycotting, but it's also available on other ways. So look for it, Agents of Change. And it really talks about, can you talk a little bit about the movie? Why did you recommend this movie to me?
I recommend it, and I use it all the time because it's about the strike at San Francisco State that led to the formation of the first Black student union in the United States, and it shows you the collective power of students. And it is important that this generation realizes the power that
Mhm.
they have as a collectivity. And I want to give a very specific example of what came out of that strike. It was not only the formation of the first Black student union, it was a moment when the state had decided that Angela Davis would never teach again in the United States. Those students in that Black student union at San Francisco State said, "Oh, yeah, she will.
Mhm.
And she'll teach right here at San Francisco State." They had the power to do that. And it, as a group, they came together as Black students, they came together as Latinx students, they came together as Filipino students to
Mhm.
build this union. And they were successful,
Mhm.
but it took 10 years.
Mhm.
It took 10 years.
Mhm.
They did not stand up on a platform and say, we're having a strike. They had been organizing they had been bringing together Blacks, Latinx people, and Filipinos in workshops. Because after all, there is no uh, automatic connection among these communities. You have to engage them in frank discussions about what are our similarities, what are our differences. So they had been having these workshops where Blacks, Filipinos, Latinx people sitting down together talking about the way in which a racist capitalist society impacts their day-to-day lives.
Mm.
And out of that collectivity comes an understanding of where the weaknesses are, how we struggle, when we struggle. That's a very important part of guaranteeing that when you make that statement, you're going to empty the rooms on the campus. It means that you are going to stand together to further the work until you get your goals met. The same, and that's the reason I recommend it, so people understand the kind of work that goes into resistance.
Yes.
It,
And go ahead.
no, I'm
Yeah, I wanted to just say that one of the things that struck me about the movie is, and it's not a movie, it's a documentary, is that Black resistance, Black organizing, Black liberation has really benefited so many other groups. You know, so many other groups benefited from that organizing, from that strike, from that occupation. You know, a lot of the programs that we have at universities now exist because of that strike, because of that occupation. And yeah, it's just it's a good way to see intersectionality, really, and really that our struggles are connected. And yeah, so I love that about the movie. So thank you for uplifting that.
yeah, and the same thing is true of the '63 school boycott in Chicago. 250,000 students stayed out of school. That wasn't something that happened overnight. People had been meeting with teachers, organizing teachers so they would support the boycott, not impede it, working with parents groups so they would support uh, the efforts to desegregate the schools in Chicago. 250,000 students
Mm-hmm.
not only stayed out of school, but carried out an organized protest downtown in the
Yeah.
center of the city. That takes work.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring everyone along into the conversation to give them
Right.
the context of that boycott, because I want you to talk about um, share with share with us the Stop Don't Shop campaign specifically, because it's a perfect example right now. We're in the holidays, it's December, people are shopping, whether they are boycotting things or not. They're
Mhm.
thinking of a loved one, their best friend's gift this year. What am I going to get so and so for Christmas? So I want to set the tone a little bit with this boycott. Right during the 1960s, in response to segregation and inequality in Chicago public schools, 250,000 students participated in coordinating boycotts organized with local community groups. At the time, the openly racist superintendent, Benjamin Willis, enforced policies that kept Black children on the South and West Side in half day schedules and taught many
Right.
classes in windowless trailers. So this is the background to the the boycott, right, of CPS.
Mhm.
And SNCC gets this idea. Who gets this idea of this campaign? Because I'm assuming that it was happening around this time, right? That it's like the holidays are coming up, people are going to be shopping. What? How did it start?
Well, I appreciate the fact that you're filling in the historical gaps here, because people don't realize that the State Street Council the Council of Merchants on State Street actually were the school board. And it was the State Street Council that was supporting Benjamin Willis in this plan to make sure that the schools remained segregated. That even though there were empty classrooms on the north side, they preferred to put students on the west and south side in these trailers so as not to integrate the schools. Well, we had sense enough to figure out that we needed to destroy the power of the State Street Council over the schools, which is the reason for the call for the boycott. But we hadn't organized around that. We had organized around the issue of boycotting the schools, but we had not organized around a boycott of the downtown merchants. The people on State Street probably made more that year than any other year.
Wow.
And so I don't know if you can show that flyer that I sent to you. There is a copy of it in our archive out at Carter G. Woodson. We had great flyers. We had announcements on radio shows and even on television. But nobody was paying any attention because we hadn't organized around that. We had called for something that we couldn't sustain. And it diminished the power that we had gained. Therefore, we went back to organizing and ultimately, of course, got rid of Ben Willis, brought the first black school superintendent, Ruth Love, and also began to develop the idea of local school councils and an elected school board. That goes back to the 1960s.
Wow. Did you also mention there were some cultural things that you had missed that people have, like if you ask people to give up something that they love, and that's usually the case. It's people are like, I love my coffee at this one location. I don't like coffee from anywhere else. This is where it tastes just different there. So if you ask someone to give up that or their fried chicken sandwich from a particular spot, they're like, that's the best fried chicken sandwich in town. Why would I give that up? There were some cultural things that we were missed.
Well, one of the things that we were completely missing, because we were celebrating Kwanzaa, we were challenging. Oh, great, there it is. Fantastic flyer. It's got all the information, never went anywhere. Not that we didn't pass it out, we did. But what we discounted is that in the Black community, even during slavery, there was one time a year that people didn't work in the fields. There was one time a year that they were allowed some privacy with their families, and it was Christmas. And Christmas has a cultural meaning that has nothing to do with the birth of Jesus. It has everything to do with being able to be with your family. And so for us to say, boycott Christmas, don't shop downtown, in order to get people to do that, you've got to talk to them for a long time and work with them for a long time before they get to that point. Because that's not where they are.
And the alternatives. You mentioned that for the Montgomery bus boycott, the carpooling was organized before the boycott started. So it's like, are you going to get me to work? Are you going to get me to school? Like how? Like you want me to give this up, but how are you helping me get there? And that's the organizing piece that you're talking about that I love so much. By the way, I thank you for sharing this flyer with us. And people want to see more of these archives. The event that you're hosting in January 8th is a good opportunity to do that. And then I just want to shout out to Alexis, who's working on the back end and quickly brought that image up for us.
Yes, thank you.
In real time.
Thank you.
And that this flyer could be, we could just change a couple things and use it today, right?
Yes,
This
right.
is that part of the what we're talking about, and we had immigrant rights groups going out this past weekend because it was Black Friday
Hmm.
to Michigan Avenue and boycotting specific stores that are supporting ICE, and that this is ongoing. It's going on now, right? So yeah, it's just it's interesting to see this flyer because it's so powerful.
Yes, yes. And one of the things that we are aware since these attacks, not only on higher education, but on communities of color and their involvement in education, that's over for the time being. Therefore, we absolutely have to create alternative spaces where we can educate our children, where we can preserve this history
Mhm.
so that they understand that there have been successes. There have been failures, but there have also been successes.
Mhm.
And this is just a shameless plug for our archive. But one of the things that is there is a wonderful letter from Reyes Tejerina, one of the leaders of the land grants movement in the Southwest. And what had happened was that members of the Alianza had been beaten by the police, and he was writing a letter to Stokely Carmichael and to Rat Brown saying, "We understand, based on what has happened to us in the last few days, that you understand this because of what your experiences have been with the police. We want to make an alliance with you."
Mhm.
Uh, and uh, this is such a powerful piece and so instructive about where the movement was in that moment and what kinds of things are possible. Nobody knows it.
So they're going to, and hopefully they'll come on January 8th to witness, to bear witness to that history. We have a couple minutes, so I do want to go into some of your lessons in quick fire here. I took some. I think I was taking good notes, Dr. Rushing, while we were talking. Is that it takes time, right? That you mentioned it's a long game. I
Right.
think it's a long game. That's
Hmm.
one of the lessons. That we have to be clear about our demands, right? That we
Right.
have to educate our communities, right? And the other one that I noted was that we have to offer alternatives. We
Yeah.
have to offer alternatives to people. If we're asking them to give something up, we have to guide them in a different direction.
Right.
And so, is there additional ones that you're like, this is important?
Well, it, uh, this whole thing about building community, building a collective reality in an individualistic society,
Mhm.
um, that for me is key, and
Huge.
it is a long game. Um, Ella Baker used to say, "We who believe in freedom cannot rest." This is so true.
Mhm.
I'm 1,000 years old. I started when I was 17,
Mhm.
but we have to be still in struggle because we have not realized our goals.
Absolutely. Is there something that, Fanny, that you want to end with?
I think that that's it. We who believe in freedom cannot rest.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Fanny. I want to just
Thank
again
you.
give you your flowers. I want to thank you for your lifelong commitment to this work. We Crossroads Fund is so honored to support the Chicago SNCC History Project. We're also honored to be speaking with you today, and just deeply grateful for your sacrifices, your leadership, and your wisdom that you poured into this movement. And yeah, again, thank you for expanding your capacity this afternoon to talk to us. Thank you, Fanny.
Thank you. And I'm really grateful for the way you interjected the historical component of this and put it in context.
Thank you. I'll add it to my LinkedIn. Thank you, Fannie.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I want to thank you all for joining us today. I want to remind you that it's Giving Tuesday. I want to see if there's a couple of people that we can get to commit to giving to Crossroads Fund as we are on our Power the Movement campaign. Whether you give a one-time gift or you become a sustainer, we would appreciate your support. If I can get a couple of people to volunteer and say, yes, I want to support grassroots organizing. Yes, I want to be part of funding over 200 grassroots organizations in Chicago. Yes, I want to fund intersectional organizing, activism that is happening in our community. I want to help sustain this movement. If you can make that commitment to make a gift either between today or the end of the year, it would help sustain this work. Thank you so much for joining us.